Okay, I was just having Mr. Medora check these and make sure it's not redundant questions. Your car lease example did not include fuel, insurance, repairs, and upkeep.
That's
Why?
true. I think it's absolutely outrageous that we should be spending as much as leasing a car to get somebody onto light rail. I mean, that is from a policy perspective absolutely incredible. I love that particular question because it gives me the opportunity to say that.
Why is public transportation a public sector function?
Mainly political. It used to be private. And what happened in the 70s, well, you go back to Rose City Transit. I don't know what preceded C-Tran, if anything. There must have been a bus company that took people into Portland. You go back to Rose City Transit in Portland. These agencies sought fare increases and were not allowed them by generally speaking, by the regulatory authorities. They weren't allowed to cut the services they need. Frankly, they couldn't compete against the automobile, the same problem that TriMet and C-Tran have at this point. And so the public sector came in and said, okay, well, we'll subsidize it and that kind of thing. One of the problems, however, is that as the public sector came in, all control of costs went away. So that, for example, since 1970, nationally, we have had transit costs rise by something like 300% or 250%, something like that, after adjustment for inflation, and transit ridership is up like 30%. We cannot find another sector of the economy, including healthcare, where that kind of an increase has occurred. And it occurs because when you basically shovel money out the door, there's no incentive to save it, and it's a problem. On the other hand, if you go to London, where Mrs. Thatcher, for example, became Prime Minister in 1979, and was concerned about what was happening to the costs at London Transport, required London Transport to start using the private sector under contract, like you see done here probably with respect to school services. You probably have some school districts that use private contractors for their school bus service. And between 1985 and 2000, they basically converted all of the London Transport bus system to contract operation by the private sector. So if you go to London and get on a double-decker, be aware you're on a private bus. And the result was to reduce the cost 50% relative to inflation over 15 years, increase ridership, and increase service. So there are alternatives, but there's real resistance to any sort of reform in the United States.
Can we get federal money for the bridge if we don't build a special transit component?
Yes. Unless you're not a part of the country that Illinois and Missouri are in. Are there special rules for this side of the Rockies? Maybe I missed that.
You sound like you are saying more cars. How is this equitable option for everyone? Not everyone can afford cars who truly benefits from more cars. Not low, middle income, or the environment?
Well, actually, low and middle income people probably benefit from cars more than anybody else because it provides them the ability to get the jobs that are further away from home, and it provides them to get to, for example, Walmart in Vancouver that they couldn't get to if they were limited to the Oregon side. I personally support ideas that would try to increase the availability of cars to low-income people. It isn't our job, however, to say whether or not cars should be allowed. People are going to buy cars. And we know all of the projections even put together by Portland Metro, show you that driving is going to continue to increase at just about the population rate. So we need to do whatever we can to provide the greatest mobility possible, I think, for everybody. And you know, if we can find a way to help lower income people have more mobility by cars, fine. The key is not to increase car use or to increase transit use. The key is to improve economic growth and job creation. That's at least what I believe.
Have there been any studies of traffic congestion increase caused by toll booths? If so, what do they show?
Well, one, recognize here that this is a proposed toll system wouldn't have toll booths, so it's not an issue. I can tell you, however, in the Chicago area where they have the Tri-State Parkway that goes around the city, it is unbelievable the air pollution and the traffic congestion that are created by toll booths. But at least the present plans, which by the way may include tolling I-205 bridge as well, would not have toll booths. It would be all automated.
How do you explain Department of Transportation's position on this issue? Do they prioritize expenditures at all? Planners here at PDX refuse to do cost-benefit studies.
Well, I'm not close enough to the situation to know, I mean, there's an awful lot of money that's being spent on transportation. I showed you that more of it proportionally is being spent on transit than is justified by the share of travel. I really don't know. I haven't looked at the prioritization at Oregon Department of Transportation or the Washington Department of Transportation to be able to answer that question.
Would Vancouver be underneath a 150 feet ramp given the current plan?
I'm sorry, what?
Would Vancouver be underneath a 150 feet ramp given the current plan?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't look at the, do you know, David, the answer to that question? Are we going to have a 150-foot high ramp in Vancouver on this? It's supposed
to be 8 stories high and
80 feet? Yeah, he says 8 stories, so that'd be 80 feet, not 150, or something like 80 feet, you know.
Why can't the city use Surpass as Miami, Florida does, yet give all Clark County and Portland residents a free pass linked to their zip code? Since I-5 is used by people from California to Canada, can't they pay the tolls?
Maybe if they go back to the drawing boards like I suggest and do the plans again, they can look at that. I have no idea.
I am confused on the new I-5 bridge. I keep hearing the bridge will not go through and be approved by the federal government without light rail. I then hear we can vote on this issue. What is the truth?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure what Washington law is with respect to local referendums, but I know if we were in California, we could put a local referendum on, an advisory referendum. We could actually put something on that would outlaw the county from going along with plans like this. It might not stop it. And what was the first part of the question? I'm sorry.
They were confused on the I-5 bridge. I keep hearing the bridge will not go through. And be approved.
Don't believe for a minute this story that the bridge cannot be approved without transit. I mean, I hate to tell you how many times in my many years of experience in transportation, I hear public officials repeating things that they're being misled on by planners. There is no such requirement. Again, remember, we have our St. Louis bridge that's under construction right now, and it doesn't have transit. And let me tell you, St. Louis is actually larger than Portland, okay? So I don't understand how this can be.
So given all this data, why are the planners so intent on dense population? What's in it for them?
Because they haven't ever looked at the data, seriously. What you have is a situation where they really do believe that, I'm not suggesting they're disingenuous, I'm only suggesting that they're wrong. Essentially what you have is a belief that if we increase density, there will be less driving. Not so. If we increase density, it may very well be there's less driving per person, but there still will be a lot more driving. And that's a real problem. And what we really need to do is start leaning on our public officials to make sure they understand the real choices here. Because if you were to do in Vancouver what they're trying to do in Portland, you would see far worse traffic congestion in the long run. You would see more air pollution, and the air would be less healthful. And all you have to do is, again, go to Europe or go to Asia and try walking for a while and see what the air smells like in places like that, even with cars that are as clean as ours, and it has to do with density. You know, one of the things you need to do if you're an auto-oriented society, and there's no place in the world that isn't an auto-oriented society, is disperse the traffic, not concentrate it.
Are you aware of the third bridge concept? I wonder whose question this is. That would keep the I-5 bridge intact?
Well, I've heard about it. I really didn't look at it very much, and I'm not aware of the extent to which the plans have considered it. They clearly didn't consider it as a part of the final alternatives that were looked at.
What is the best way to organize against this project?
Boy, you know what? Now you're getting into real local stuff. David, you want to answer that question? What's the best way to organize against this project?
Is to do what you're doing right here, and that is to get informed, get involved. My assumption, first of all, I'm brand new at this whole process. I'm a newbie. I was a citizen, and I assumed that wisdom would prevail. And what I determined, or what woke me up, is to find out that wisdom is not prevailing unless good people get involved get informed, we don't have the best of leaders elected. So what we're doing right here, the best plan that I know of is don't let the people who build bridges be the one to drive the ship. Don't let the suppliers be the ones to determine who gets elected. Don't let the political machine that's out there, the good old boy machine, be the one to allow people to be the ones to select our leaders. Let the people be the ones who are informed enough, care enough to participate, to elect good leaders. Edmund Burke, he said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. We are so busy. We're so involved with our own families. We need to take time for this in order to turn things around. And I'm very pleased to see that this is happening around our nation. It's a good turn for the better.
And also, without
Thank
getting
you.
into the local organizing thing, because I don't know about that, you'll recognize that the incredible impact that the Tea Party movement has had on politics in this country. And this is just a whole bunch of people that got together and decided that they didn't like how things were doing. And be aware, in addition to that, and I've been a public official and I've sat there and I've listened to insulting people and respectful people who have come at the public information part of the meeting and made their comments, and they come every meeting, and there was nothing under the state law of California we could do to stop it. We had to listen. That's fine. Recognize that if you show up en masse at public agency meetings, city council, county commission, etc., you wouldn't believe the impact. Normally, and I don't know what it looks like here, but I can tell you that in a lot of places there aren't that many people attending these meetings, and often they're the same people, so we just take them for granted. So you wouldn't believe what your presence at these kinds of meetings will do, and you don't have to speak, you know. Just your being there is important.
I have read on Agenda 21. Your presentation in many areas reflects what Agenda 21 is trying to accomplish. Can you comment on Agenda 21 and how it can or will impact Clark County?
Well, I hate to be facetious, but if you've got Portland planning, why do you need Agenda 21? I mean, seriously, it's, I've never looked into that. The basic point is, we do not need the United Nations to tell us to do the wrong things. We have planners right here in the United States that are doing that. So the problem is very close.
Have you spoken before the CRC Planning Commission? If so, what's the reaction?
No, never. I'd be happy to, but I have not. Never invited. A lot of places I don't get invited.
Why is that? Never mind.
I'll let David answer that one.
With a doubling and tripling of the number of retired citizens by 2035, what impact will be anticipated on traffic demands?
Boy, that's a hard question. I don't know. I haven't seen anybody do anything very significant on that. But recognize that you know we're all living a lot longer than we used to live, and we're all driving a lot longer. And the basic data, I work closely with Joel Kotkin, who some of you may know. He writes all the time in Forbes, and he had a wonderful book recently called The Next 100 Million that talks about the population growth that will occur in the United States between now and 2050. And he's really good on this stuff, and he suggests that for the most part, we can expect that senior citizens will move from their house to an assisted living center or to a nursing home. That is to say, there's not going to be a point in their life where all of a sudden they get out of their car and they start riding transit. You know, if they get out of their car and they start riding transit, it's because they're going to use the C-Tran dial-a-ride. It's not going to be because they're going to use the fixed route bus service. So people are driving as long as they can drive safely, and that's usually as long as they live independently.
Clark County Transit recently said that operation costs might have to come from Clark County government fund if tax isn't approved.
Well, basic problem in transit, I mean, regrettably, transit costs are out of control. They generally tend to rise faster than than inflation, and that creates a situation where you really can't support them with present tax funds, and so they're always coming back for more money.